What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Sports Medicine Broadcast, episode 113, Rookie Mistakes, recorded October 1st, 2014. We got lots of guests this week. We got John Harmon from Dickinson High School, who's been a trainer for, athletic trainer, for 15 years. And he is the South representative for GHATS. We have Bubba Wilson back. Bubba's a regular here. Would you say 25 years? 24 years? I was close. 24 years working with Nicole Harmon, and he's the reason we have that really cool Shakira. Show the backdrop. You're watching live. It's the reason we have the really cool backdrop there behind him. And then we got Dr. Mark Knoblauch, also a regular here, and Nicole Cascia is becoming a regular on the Sports Medicine Broadcast, one of the students of the University of Houston's Masters of Athletic Training program. So I am your host, Jeremy Jackson, and with me today,
Jose, Adrian,
Shakira, Gabby.
Go ahead. Yes.
Olivia and Jess.
All right. And so I accidentally texted Adrian's mom, and she said she was going to try and listen in today. So Adrian's mom, if you're listening, hello. So thanks for listening in and just kind of checking out what your students are doing here on the Sports Medicine Broadcast. So if you want to join the conversation, so Adrian, if your mom uses Twitter, she can use hashtag TheSMB on Twitter. And then Bob will be over there, and he'll be tweeting back and forth and telling us if anybody has anything to say. You can use a Ustream social feature. That is where Adrian is on Ustream. And again, links to all that stuff is on the website. All right, here we go.
Mr. Harmon, please tell us who you are and what you do.
My name is John Harmon. I'm the head athletic trainer at Dickinson High School. This is my 5th year there. Before that, I was 4 years the head athletic trainer at Clearbrook High School. Before that, 4 years at Lamarck High School. So I guess I'm trying to get all the letter jackets in Galveston County. So that's what I do.
Do you get letter jackets?
I don't think I do. Maybe I should put in for that.
Maybe you should. You'd probably have to buy it though.
Probably.
Yeah. All right. So then, Bubba, again, if anybody listens regularly, they know who you are. But go ahead and give us a real quick.
Bubba Wilson. I'm an outreach athletic trainer for Memorial Hermann Hospital System, and I'm with the Southeast Hospital.
All right, Dr. Knoblauch, if you will, give us just a brief idea of your experience.
Excuse me, Mark Knoblauch. I am now the clinical coordinator for the Master of Athletic Training program. Started out my career in '98. My first job I got I was the athletic trainer at a junior college, Pratt Community College in Pratt, Kansas. And then moved to Lamar University in Beaumont, Texas, and then left the profession clinically and went back to school at U of H and did that since from 2005 to 2011, then did a postdoctoral fellowship at Baylor College of Medicine down in the Med Center before getting this job at U of H in January.
And then the assistant co-host on the Sports Medicine Broadcast.
All right, that's right. That's awesome. And you know why I'm here, because you run a heck of a show here. This is awesome.
All right, and then Nicole is back with us. She was on there when we did it live at U of H. She has been here last week.
Yep, it was last week.
And so, Nicole, tell us your experience with athletic training.
Well, right now I'm a graduate student at the University of Houston. I'm mastering in athletic training. It's our second semester right now. I'm enjoying it. We're going through clinical rotations. I'm working with football, and soon I'll be doing outreach with Bubba at Memorial Hermann. I'm excited for that. It starts in a couple weeks. So I'm still getting used to the ropes and what athletic training really entails, and I'm excited to learn more and what's to come.
So this show is entitled Rookie Mistakes. So you're technically not even a rookie yet.
Technically, right.
So what do you
I can
hope?
still make mistakes without it being rookie mistakes.
Some mistakes.
What do you hope to get out of this lesson today, so that these three guys and maybe me can really help shape your future to not fail?
I hope that I'll be able to learn from their mistakes, even though, I'll probably come back in about 10 years, like Dr. Knoblauch was telling me, saying, even though you said that it still happened, I still did it, but hopefully I'll be able to take in as much and learn from others' mistakes. That's the best thing that you can do.
All right.
Tell us some of your rookie mistakes or ones you have seen others make.
Who do you want to start?
Start right there.
You.
With the professional.
We're going to start with John Harmon.
The really good-looking guy. That'll be me.
No, Bubba's second. So go ahead.
Well, it's funny. I think Jeremy I think we spoke about this before, and you mentioned that, I mentioned to you that when I was a graduate assistant at the University of Texas, when I came in, and it was realistically our first practicing time as a credentialed athletic trainer as a grad assistant, I worked primarily with women's volleyball, and the other athletic trainer, grad assistant on the women's side that worked with softball, he and I always bounce stuff off of each other, because as first year athletic trainers, there's so much we don't know that we haven't learned from Arnheim or Hoppenfeld or whatever. The books just don't teach you how to handle patients that are defiant, or coaches that are tough to handle, or at that level you don't really deal with parents as much. But how do you navigate those seas? And we always kind of joked around, we need to write a book, and then we can retire and never have to be athletic trainers again, because everybody will just buy our book. Doesn't work like that, by the way. But we said, we do write a book about rookie mistakes, and what you need to learn as an athletic trainer apart from the clinical side, or the evaluation, or how to build a training room and whatnot. So that's kind of where I think this stepped off. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Exactly.
So I don't know if it's a compliment or a slap in the face that I'm here for rookie mistakes. Evidently, I've made several of them. But anyway, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me. As far as mistakes I've made, I don't know that I'm going to go into specifics of the really, really bad ones. But what pops into my head immediately is, just how do you conduct yourself as an athletic trainer, apart from how to perform a Lockman's drawer test, or how to set up a football field, or plan for a cross-country meet or something like that. And the big ones do seem to be, how do you handle a defiant athlete? How do you handle someone who doesn't want your help? The hot topic nowadays is concussion. Putting yourself you're going to be put in a tough situation where you have to make a call on something, and you're going to have people that aren't happy with you. Coaches, maybe, players, certainly, parents possibly, and you have to hold firm to your convictions and your knowledge, being the medical expert at that facility or at that game. So there's so many levels that we can take this to as far as rookie mistakes go, but those are some of the ones that just always pop into my head. I've certainly made mistakes with kids, evaluating them or whatnot, but that kind of just goes with the territory.
All right, so let's see if we can do a little bit more in detail. So I'll go ahead and share one. There was this kid. It was my first year as an athlete. It was my second year when I worked at my previous high school, and an athletic trainer had started the first 3 weeks of the year with me, and then he got moved up to assistant principal at a different school. So I'm solo my second year as a professional athletic trainer at a 5A high school, and this kid was always in there whining, always about anything and everything whining. So then he gets hurt at a football game. And he says, my ankle hurts. Well, I don't really take him serious. All right, can you do this or this? Okay, well, then you're fine. So then comes back tomorrow in a cast, or, I think the next week he came back and he had to have a plate put in because he had broken his ankle. Well, I missed that. And so, just because I was annoyed by his whining, I missed that. So that is definitely a huge rookie mistake that could have potentially cost me my job, and so things like that are something that I would really like to pass on, is even though that kid is so annoying, we have one right now that I can think of here. So annoying every day. And my elbow hurts. Can you tape it? No, I'm not going to put tape on your elbow so you can tackle better. No, it's not going to help you.
Or spat me because it looks cool.
Yes, exactly. Those kind of things. They still might get hurt. So you just can't overlook those things. So.
It's tough to be able to distance yourself from that kid, because we've all seen them, I'm sure. They come in and they're just a fixture in the training room, and not necessarily in a good way. But you still have to be able to put your professional cap on and make an accurate assessment on that kid's injury, and it's a tough situation.
All right, so Bubba, let's see what you got on as far as rookie mistakes there.
Well, first off, I can give some people a PhD in rookie mistakes on those that I've made. And then we'll make your book the second volume of 2. The first one is mine, which is going to be things they never told me in the job interview. And I'll give all of you here a chapter to write if you want to. I think on the kid that's always complaining, that's not necessarily a rookie mistake. That's a human nature mistake. We get them. And after a while, you cry wolf so much, you're like, whatever, I don't want to hear it. And yeah, it's hard to step back sometimes and go, all right, let me take a look at this and objectively take a look at it, as opposed to go, yeah, get out of here, you're fine. I think for me, the biggest thing when I thought about this on the drive over this morning about what to mention, and I think for me, it's communication skills. You get out, you're brand new, you're fresh, you're younger, you're dumber. You're going to go save the world, which doesn't happen. And you're going to show everybody how good you are. And all of a sudden, you've got this kid that isn't going to practice, needs to go to the doctor, and you've got to talk to the parent or parents, depending on the situations. You've got to talk to the coach. You may have to talk to several coaches. Depending on what's going on, you might have to talk to the administration. And you've never had to do that. And we can argue, is that a failing of the educational system of getting your degree? And that is no, because where are you going to do this unless you just go play devil's advocate in a room with people one day? But it's learning how to go tell the coach that, hey, John's out. He's hurt his knee. He needs to go get it evaluated. I think it's this. And then they're going to ask you a bunch of questions, and rightfully so. Well, why do you think it's that? If that is that, how long is he out? What can he do? Can he do this? You need to be able to answer those questions besides the old parent move of because I said so. You've got to be able to answer those, effectively and intelligently with the coaching staff, with the player, with the parents. You got to explain to the coach why you're holding them out. I don't mind explaining to someone why we're holding you out. Don't question me as far as, well, I think you're stupid. We'll get around to that. But, we need to be able to, he did this. This is what I'm feeling when I look at him. This is what I'm seeing. They need to go get this evaluated. You need to be able to lay it out there in front of everybody, the good and the bad. And that's a hard thing to learn. And you got to make a lot of mistakes before you figure out, who did injury reports to coaches in college. The only time you did it is if you covered a sport by yourself, and that doesn't happen. So you need to be prepared for all those things to give that report to that coach and to go through it. Say, as of right now, when I'm giving it to you, here's my thoughts on this. That may change an hour from now, and they understand, but you've got to give them information. They can't walk out on the field to practice and they don't have 3 guys they thought they were going to have because you didn't tell them they were hurt. That's where you get a lot of problems arise. You're going to get in trouble for not telling them versus telling them. Nobody wants either way, but what's a lesser of two evils?
I think just right along those same lines is communicating. We've had a couple of different issues. I mean, like one time we had to call an ambulance. Well, we didn't call. You're supposed to call the campus police officer first so they can call 911 so that they can help direct them so that they can avoid it from being in the news. Well, I'm just thinking, hey, there's a femur fracture. I need to call 911 to get this kid transported to make sure that she's okay. I'm not worried about taking 10 different steps. This is me, call 911. That's it. That's boom.
Right.
You're done. And so just learning to communicate. I didn't get in trouble, but it's one of those steps. Hey, this is what our procedure is. And so from then on, I haven't had to call 911, but I know that I'm supposed to call dispatch first. So communication. So, and then another one I know was kind of the same thing is a player got hurt, and I kind of tried to say, well, just because I'm an athletic trainer, I know I had talked to Dr. Knoblauch about this probably more than once. Just the people that have to prove something are the young ones usually,
right? And
so I was new here at this school. I think it was actually my first year here, and I was like, well, whatever I say, he's going to say too, because he was standing in front of me after I'd already talked to him and asking Bill the same question. I'm like, we do the same job. He's going to tell you the same thing I just told you. Go get over there to practice or whatever. But he's like, I wasn't asking you. So, obviously it makes me punch him or something. But
you would make the news for that.
Yeah, I would. And so it's just one of those things is just say, you know what, that's okay. Because if I was right, I was right. If I was wrong, then the kid's better off for asking. And so just one of those things, learning to. And
some of that being at a new spot, you can't take personally because Bill built the school here. I mean, he's been here forever.
Right.
So he's the go-to guy for some of that stuff because that's just human nature. And so you can't, anybody in that situation can't get upset when that coach comes to ask you that question. When I looked at him, but I'm new. It's only my first year.
Mm-hmm.
It's a familiarity thing. And that is tough to get over and, not beat yourself up over and, want to go beat your chest and go, I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. You got to let it roll off your back.
All right. So moving on down, feel free to jump in at any time, John, Mark. So if you got anything, Mark, as you come down the whatever it is, firing squad, what are some of the things that can
I have my global situation. I have a story just like what you were talking about, but I echo exactly what these two have said. It's communication and I know what you're talking about when you said we talked about something before was I was told by a mentor that you can tell there's three hierarchies. A student will always say, whatever you say, I'll do. Coach, whatever you say. And then the athletic trainer that's been there a while will say, Coach, I'll take care of it. Don't worry about it. Well, I was the middle one, which was, and this was told to me, was don't be the new grad assistant that says, I'm certified now. I'll take care of it the way I'm going to do it. And my first job, wouldn't you know, I did that. And what happened was a coach had made some comments because I said I'd like to start a rehab program, and because I had never had an athletic trainer full time at that college before. And I said, I'd love to do this for you. This is our staff meeting. Well, word got around to me that this coach was making some comments. So I just took those comments as face value. And I went to the head coaches, and this is from an assistant coach. I went to the head coach's office and I just started ranting. I'm like, nobody tells me that I can't do, sports medicine stuff. And if you don't like it, well, baseball's going to suffer. And this coach is like, what are you talking about? I don't know, anything about this. Well, come to find out the story had been embellished quite a bit.
That would never happen.
Yeah. And so, I got called in, the AD. Well, the AD actually brought it up first. He said, I heard there's some friction between you and this assistant. I said, no, what are you talking about? He's like, well, this was said and this was said. I was like, what? And so my global thing is, from a rookie mistake, is I've learned you've got to get both sides of the story. Do not take the athlete's side. The athlete says, well, this is how it happened. I've had people tell me that they rolled their ankle in practice because they stayed after. And then I heard later that it was because they were inebriated and it was totally unrelated. And so I've taken, over time, I've become that person's like, wait, I'll take care of it. Let me get both sides of the story kind of thing. And so that has helped me a lot, but it's just when you're newly certified, my advice is do not take the attitude of, I'm an athletic trainer now, we're going to do it my way. It goes back to what you were saying. Maybe if they want a second opinion, that's okay. It doesn't have to be my way. And then maybe I can learn from this too. But from a specific mistake, I remember you talked about the kid that's always complaining. Well, I was covering, this is in Beaumont, I was covering a junior high football game. And I just remember humid, and mosquitoes like you wouldn't believe. And this player, it was the classic scenario. The kid runs a sweep, runs all the way, and he's down the sideline. You can't see him, so you're 10 yards out on the football field, and I see him laying there. And I just see he's laying face down. He's just kind of kicking his feet, like just doing this. So I thought, okay. So I jogged down, and the kid's moaning. And I'm like, what? And so I said, hey, tell me what happened. And all he hears, oh, like that. And he's laying there face down. And I said, and I asked somebody else, what happened? He said, well, he got tackled from behind. And so we're literally for 4 or 5 minutes, I'm sitting there asking this kid questions. He would not answer. He was just moaning. So I was getting aggravated, which is the worst thing to do. Is, it's this whole whiny kid, you're not taking it. So he's moaning. And I did my famous line to these students, like, if you don't tell me what's wrong, I'm gonna have to call an ambulance. And not usually like, well, this is what happened. It wasn't that bad. So the kid just starts moaning. I'm like, okay, fine. I didn't think it was that bad. I thought maybe he got tackled from behind, maybe hurt his back or something. So we called the ambulance. I was frustrated. I'm like, you know what? Just call an ambulance for him. And call an ambulance, send him off, finish the game. Next morning, I get a phone call from Sean Klinger, who was the athletic trainer for the district. And I still remember the phone call. The first thing he said, great call on that tibia. And I said, what? Not to give away that I didn't know. He's like, great call. I said, what ended up happening? He said, I was 20 feet away and I could see the fracture on that tibia. That was awesome. And I'm sitting there saying, oh yeah. Well, he was showing some signs. I wasn't sure, so I thought I'd go ahead and send him off. It was the biggest fracture. The physicians, it was a longitudinal fracture. So I mean, just clearly down the tibia. And it was obviously he got tackled and twisted, and I couldn't do a special test because the kid was just moaning, so I couldn't touch him. I wouldn't get anything out of him. And so my lesson there was, even though you're frustrated, you've got to take the time because you never know when that one thing is going to happen. And if it could be a concussion or head injury, what do you do when the kid's unable to walk anymore? And well, Mr. Attorney asks you, so you were frustrated is why you didn't hold him out of the game. You didn't think he was, he needed to be held out because you were mad at him. So yeah, that's my number one. That was a mistake I made.
If you'd have taken his mouthpiece out, he could have told you that his tibia hurt.
Oh, there we go. But I mean, I'm evaluating. I'm slapping the towel because the mosquitoes are on me, and and just it was not a good situation. But I just clearly remember, he just what, fine, just go to the hospital, and here it was. And the sad part is I may have evaluated him and missed it and said, no, you're fine. If he would have talked. So maybe it was fate that he was like that. But just, even though you're frustrated, you've got to do take the time with them, spend with them if they're good fallback. Yeah. If they're the classic one that, is always hurt. What about that one time? And then they don't talk about the 80 times they weren't hurt. You hear about the one time that their parents tell everybody else that they really were hurt, and the athletic trainer wouldn't even see them. So,
right.
Along those same lines though, developing a working knowledge of your athletes and their personalities and who they are as a person helps tremendously. Not that you need to be out in the locker room hanging out with them and stuff like that, but just having a working knowledge of your kids. Kind of a similar situation at a prior school. A young man got hurt, was a little bit dazed, ended up having a fairly mild concussion. He was okay, but he wouldn't answer my questions. Wouldn't answer. I would ask him one way, what happened. Couldn't tell me anything. I would ask him, what's your name? What's going on? What are you feeling? Wouldn't answer. Starting to get a little frustrated. And again, kind of echoed that. Okay, well then we're just going to call an ambulance if it's this bad. If you're unresponsive to me, we're just going to go ahead and get you carted off. Till his buddy comes up to me and says, Coach, he doesn't speak English. Tu hablas español? And I didn't know that about him. Now it was a freshman B game, and I just don't have that much working knowledge of all those kids at the time. But that would have been good to know before I started grilling this kid. He did not go in the ambulance. In fact, I honestly don't remember if he had any significant injury or not. But having a little bit of working knowledge of your kids helps tremendously.
All right. So to go off of that, I think one of the things that a lot of times, even today, you don't always do because it gets overwhelming. You got to look at your paperwork. You got to know your medical histories with that. You can't just take the physical. Hey, great, the doctor cleared them, and go. Well, you need to know the diabetics, the asthmatics, the all these issues, and some sickle cell. And the other thing that goes with that is you got to know which parent you can and cannot talk to, because you can't just pick up the thing and go talk to dad, and dad's not supposed to have any contact with this child. So you've got to pay attention to all that other stuff. And this is why I want to write the book, Things They Never Told Me in the Job Interview. This is the stuff you're not taught. This is the stuff you learn by going, whoops, okay, well, yeah, good to know now. But you've got to pay attention to those things too. You can't worry about all the sexy, fun stuff of Lockman's testing and going to surgery and rehabbing an ACL and a Bankart lesion. That's not the common daily stuff. It's this other things that you don't want to do, that you need to know to do to make your job easier and to stay employed.
And on that note, Lockman test doesn't change over time.
Right.
You learn it. Yeah.
Yes,
there's concussions and all that, but anatomical special stress tests, anatomy doesn't change. So once you know that. So what are the things that you don't learn exactly right? I mean, you said it yourself. I was in grad school before I took my first injury report around. These students don't get that opportunity. So it's not just handing the paper or sliding the paper in the door. There might be the coach. You hand it to them, and they look at it like, wait, what's up with so-and-so? Why are they out? And, they're immediately agitated. I've told many coaches, nothing makes your day worse than seeing the athletic trainer coming down the hallway because you're mad. You're already mad. Oh, what's he going to tell me? It's very rarely that we bring him good news. And that's the interaction that these students don't get and most students don't get because the head football trainer, head basketball trainer, or high school assistant trainer takes the injury reports around. But I want them to get the psychological component of it too, to know, stay professional. That it's right, but at the same time, it's their jobs on the line. They're frustrated, not at you personally. It's just, oh, I need him, and right. So that side of it.
I used to tell them I'm not the guy that hurt them. I'm just the unlucky individual that had to come tell them they were hurt.
I don't think that's the word you actually.
It's not, but we're on a broadcast. You want one? But I think with that, at that same time, the other part that's hard to deal with is how are they hurt? I didn't see them get hurt. You're right, because they were on the other field, And so you gotta sometimes. I would step back and develop my argument sometimes when I was younger, just so I wouldn't go off the deep end and say something I shouldn't have. But I'd sit in there and say, okay, I'm going to tell them this. They're going to say this. I'm going to respond with this. So when I went in, I was a little calmer and collected and was prepared for that. But I had to learn that over time as well.
And the classic line, well, when I hurt my ankle, right. I was back in a week. Why is he still out? Well, coach, you're limping on your ankle too, or you're always in here getting treatment on your right. ankle too. Exactly. Or maybe take a hint.
Well, and here's the here's the bombshell that I'm sure is not a bombshell to either of you. What I learned as an undergrad, taking classes to become a certified athletic trainer, realistically is about 20% of what I actually do in my day. It's all that other stuff. It's and the big one for me that I tend to default to is is what helps us more than anything else in this world. Every young person in here, you're all student athletic trainers? Most all student athletic trainers? And it's how do you manage that student athletic training program? Because you all are essential and vital components of the athletic training team, of the sports medicine team. And you don't get enough credit for what you do. But when you don't have good student athletic trainers, your job just becomes so much more difficult. My first year at the high school level, we did not have a lot of really good student athletic trainers, and no one taught me how to manage a program. And my default was, why are you so bad? Why don't you want to be better?
Because you suck as a head athletic trainer and didn't teach me. That's why they're bad.
Yeah, exactly. That ended up being the actual truth.
That's what they would respond back.
But it was you can't just default to chopping people down to try to make them better, especially those that aren't there for getting their names in the paper. Everybody wants to be the star running back who gets 200 yards and 4 touchdowns and gets their name in the Galveston Daily News. Not everybody that's out there is in that same situation. Certainly not student athletic trainers. So it's how do you manage an effective student athletic trainer program? And I've certainly made my fair share of mistakes managing a program, and I'm going to continue to make them. If any of my student trainers listen to this, I'm sorry in advance. But that's the big deal. How do you run an effective student athletic training program? And that in itself helps take care of so many other issues that at the high school level, at least, that we see.
I think, and I'd agree with you. I think you'd agree with this statement, which is you got to remember that they're not nearly as passionate about this as you are. And that's Absolutely. Hard to sometimes stomach. It's, well, then why are you here? Well,
that was my next comment was you made me think of that is it's not a mistake. It's just something I need to remember is not everybody went into it the way we did. Right. It's like, I want to do this. I want to do this. I mean, you've had many times people are in your program, but they want to be a physical therapist or something. That's fine. That's their career choice. Let them do it. But but when they're working is, I told people I had a weird thing. I took pride, and I don't mean it's not a good thing, but I took pride in making the field setup look perfect when I was a student. I thought it was so coolers were turned everywhere, but I can't expect that.
I still do that.
But when people,
that's a problem.
I guess maybe that is a little retentive, but I can't hold that against other people. Is how can you not want to be here at 6 a.m.? Well, because you maybe have kids or you had a class. So that's a part of when I was starting out, as I expected that of the students is like, wait, you got a job? What? and it wasn't fair to them because they had bills. Cell phones weren't popular when I was growing up, and the internet was non-existent essentially. And so now all that there's extra bills paid and needs to be paid and everything. But I think that's a big part is remembering that just because you're doing it, not everybody has that same passion. Even though they may enjoy it, maybe you can build the passion, it may not happen. And so you have to step back and realize that they don't live it 24/7, and it's not their fault. It's just
and I'm getting paid for it. and
Right.
And even though I keep promising our student trainers I'm working on trying to get them paid, it never happens.
Yeah, see, I think one of the things also, I mean, John and I have communicated more than once about, hey, what are you doing with your student athletic trainers? What are you doing with as far as scheduling or, this kind of thing? And so one of the things that John was doing with the schedule, we tried it out, he tried it out, and both of us were like, it kind of didn't work. So, let's work together and see if there's something else that we can do that can make them buy in more, because we were having problems with them not covering their, the softball games or these kind of things, because they wanted to work football, but not softball. So, how do you get them to buy in when, just like you guys said, they're not as passionate, or they just really like football and can't keep their grades up after football season, those kind of things. And so I think this kind of thing is, maybe that's a topic we can talk about another time, with student athletic trainer programs. But just find a friend that, even if they're not killing it with whatever you're struggling in, they can at least give you an idea.
Well, I think a lot of people will be amazed that that's probably a bigger topic of conversation at certain CEU events than people realize. It's not, hey, how do you handle this injury rehab wise? It's, what are you doing with your kids? That's a big, we talk about it quite a bit, some stuff. I gave you some stuff this morning, but that's a big conversation piece in our profession.
So here goes a shameless plug. I have a email list, and I'm actually going to put what you've given me today and load it online, and then send that out to the people that subscribe to the email list.
Well, hang on, we got to vet some of that stuff, but yeah.
Oh, okay. So that's what I'm saying. Once I upload, once I get it ready. So if you join the email list, I'm going to send you out Bubba's. He's got a 12-step program for student athletic trainers. I don't know if it's really 12. I'll see.
No, there's 11.
Okay. So
only 11?
Yeah.
I have a hard time believing that.
Again, shameless plug. Join the email list there on the website. All right, continue, Bubba. I'm sorry for interrupting you there.
No, that's right. But I think, I think that's the other thing is being younger and dumber, and now getting older and a little bit wiser. I had to realize that not everything I learned in college is the way to do it. That worked there probably because it was done the same way for so long because of lack of turnover, and that's fine. There's something with being comfortable in certain ways. But with like student trainers, I did it one way and saying, that doesn't work. I scheduled mine every other day. That tended to work for everybody. It gave them time off. We were sick of seeing each other. Everybody got to get away from each other. But with that, I had an expectation of there should be very few conflicts now. If I'm going to give you an every other day work schedule all of football season, you should know when you're working and when you're not. And then try to, like with the levels, trying to do things that rewarded them if they advanced in learning and increasing their knowledge base.
So Bill and I were talking about doing the same thing, the every other day thing. So here in Pasadena, we may play a varsity game on Thursday, Friday, or Saturday. Right. So did you just, no matter what, say Olivia here, she worked every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Jess worked every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, or they
it flipped. So one week you work Monday, Wednesday, Friday. The next you work Tuesday, Thursday. We did Saturday morning treatments.
Regardless of games.
Well, hang on. And so then let's say it's a normal Friday game. So you Monday practice, Wednesday practice, Friday varsity game. Okay. You had no responsibilities on Tuesday or Thursday or Saturday with me. I also scheduled morning treatments. So you would have to, part of them would have to come in for morning treatments on those days. If it was and then the next week it would switch where you go Tuesday practice, Thursday sub-varsity game, Saturday morning treatments. If you had a Thursday or Saturday game, we adjusted that schedule accordingly. So you might go Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and the other group would go, if it depending on when you play your sub-varsity, we'd flip that to make it all consistent still.
So it wasn't pure Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Okay.
No, because you don't want to reward one group of, in essence, getting all the varsity games, and the other group has to take all the sub-varsity games. So we tried to flip it around and make it as even as possible. But my caveat to that was, when you can go make a hair appointment, and it's not a month from now on the day you've got to work, and that was the irritating part of I'm giving this to you in August.
Yeah.
Through November. Don't say you didn't know.
Chad Jones, when he was at Pearland, did something real similar. Had a A group and a B group, and they followed that same type of schedule. And he had an extremely successful student trainer program when he was at Pearland. And I thought, well, okay, cool. Let me try that and give it a shot. And let me tell you how quickly that went down in flames under my direction. There's so many renditions of running a student trainer program that I'm 13th year at the high school level. This is probably my 13th version of how to run a student trainer program. And I know we're not trying to make this about student trainer programs, but and how to run one, but it's such a vital part of what we do at the high school level, makes our job so much easier. I made probably the biggest mistake of my career with regards to student athletic trainer programs. There's two examples. One, when I was at a prior school, I actually named a young lady as the head student athletic trainer, and that was the worst thing I could have done. I might as well just tattooed a bullseye on the back of her head. I'm
surprised you're alive.
And we still joke around about it, but she's good humor about it, at least. But the other one was in following kind of what another school did, was I actually designated you are the varsity student athletic trainers and you are the JV freshman student athletic trainers, thinking the JV freshman student athletic trainers will be trying to work harder to get to the varsity level. And all it did was alienate those kids. All it did was make, okay, we're varsity, you're not. We're going to keep you down here at arm's length. So again, that works for another program, and I'm not going to say who it was, but it works very well for them, and it just went down in flames for me. It's probably my administering of that program that was
But you
bad.
said it earlier, you get not just knowing your athletes, you got to know your student trainers.
Sure.
And so we would have to do the whole thing of, you can't come in and go, everybody's working every day. If I'm here, you're here. It's not going to work that way. It's not going to happen, and you'll be studentless pretty quick. But the same thing, we'd make everybody work during 2-a-days back when you could have them, because I need to know what personalities meshed and what didn't, so you could avoid those conflicts, who needed to ride with whom. So that took a little time. And while that's going on, we're creating the schedule. Now, every other day worked for us. But, I know there's places it's not going to work because the students are different. It's like, I don't want to do that. And so you got to, again, with age comes a little bit of wisdom. You learn to adapt. So.
All right. So I'm sure we could talk about student athletic trainer programs for a while.
A day or two.
Yeah, especially with this group I have here. I mean, we can. So Nicole, I know Will last week said he was interested in secondary. Were you interested in secondary high school?
Not after today.
Yeah, not a good time to plug it right now.
Well, right now, being in the collegiate level, I find myself really interested in kind of staying there, I guess, because I'm comfortable right now, and that's where I'm kind of gaining my knowledge from. That's why right now I kind of see myself more in the collegiate level.
All right.
Give her 5 more semesters. She'll change her mind.
Hopefully I'll be getting other
I'm just shocked. I didn't know that football in college didn't have 2-a-days anymore. It's so structured. So I was waiting for these guys to drop like flies first week of August. And it's, it was, what'd you have?
Yeah, there were a few 5 a.m.
You had a walkthrough, you had helmets only,
Yeah.
and then you had no contact. I mean, it was just amazing.
Oh, yeah. It's back in our day,
5 a.m. to 11 p.m. I mean, it's
right.
Tell your loved ones goodbye. You'll see them in 3 years.
She'll want to come to the secondary school after she sees what collegiate athletic trainers make. But
yeah,
That's
I would agree.
Even in college, you're still going to have to deal with student athletic trainers.
Exactly.
And so, I mean, I was a student athletic trainer in college and did plenty of dumb stuff where there was arguments between us. So, we had to build relationships. And
That's true.
But it's also, if you don't do what you're supposed to, you're gone.
You're
it's
gone.
That easy. It's
Right.
a lot easier in college.
And you get to have others tell you how those students have to work too.
Right
That's
now,
really fun.
Yeah, right now.
Nope, have to have one day off.
The
Nope.
master students, we're actually working together with the undergrad students because we're both working with football, the graduate students and the undergrad students. And I see a different type of motivation within the undergrads than with us. We're in the program. We're in the Masters of Athletic Training program. We have a potential career ahead of us. They are still trying to figure out if it's something they want to do, but we're collaborating within the football program to help football out, but there's still sort of that black and white kind of working, and there's a difference between the student athletic trainers and then us. I see it.
I would think for you guys in the MAT program, it's you're doing this to learn and to to move forward. And then as an undergrad program, they're doing it because
They're still trying to figure out, is this what I want to do?
they're just doing a
Survival.
job.
Yeah, it was
Right.
It was really cool to watch them over time from the first day when I actually asked the question specifically, does anybody know anybody else in here? And nobody knew each other. By the third week, you walk in the classroom and they're, one person was giving another one a little neck rub because they were having a bad day, and you watch them interact, and it was really neat to watch that. But yeah, exactly right. They go into, and this is the way I've summed it up for everybody. They're going to athletic training school. They're not going to get a master's degree and do athletic training. It's a curriculum. It's a cohort. Everybody goes through. So they really had to make the commitment financially, time-wise, career-wise to do this. And so it's hopefully going to pay off for them. So.
All right.
Well, can I ask one question real quick? It's always the big debate that's been out there. I went through.
Where you're going. I know where this is going already.
No, we've gone off track, but that's okay.
When you say debate.
I went through a internship
I
program.
I did too.
And the benefit of the small little Tusculum College, which I know you're familiar with, go Pioneers. We got a lot more hands-on with our kids, our athletes. We played more of an integral role in the actual day-to-day operations of the athletic training room. Whereas on the clinical side, it seems to be like it's a little bit more of a scrubbed version, a cleaned version of what the job is, more the clinical side of it. So, that's my worry for the future, is that we're going to get really, really knowledgeable athletic trainers coming out who
Have no people skills.
not necessarily have
They're
people
book smart.
skills. They're very book smart.
that's
but when it comes down to fixing the water cow,
when I was
what
in,
do I do?
when I was in,
Arnheim doesn't say
I
that.
don't know.
I was in this, and that was you have the book smart curriculum graduates, and you have the hands-on or the evaluation smart internships, or the other side of it. And and I come from the internship, so I have a strong feeling towards those. I didn't graduate from a curriculum and working in a curriculum and everything. And it is an argument, but it's like, I remember in '98 at the NATA, the town hall meeting was it was Chad Starkey was up there, and the curriculum decision makers were up there, and they said, like it or not, it's coming.
Yeah.
You don't have a choice. We're not trying to say that to be mean, but you can argue all you want. This is happening. And
It needed to happen.
yeah. And there was I remember somebody gave me the statistic, 3,800 newly certified individuals for 312 jobs that year that came out. And they said, we've got to find a way to narrow this down. So the curriculum came out, and what I do like about it is it's very structured. Everybody learns the same. Because I remember I started as a junior in the internship program. This is at Wichita State. We didn't have football. And the 5 minutes into the first day, I was in the athletic trainer's office. It just happened to, I didn't know him. I was just saying something. He's like, hey, you're going to put a blister pad on somebody's foot? I'm like, okay, come show me. He's like, no, you go ahead and try it and see what happens. And so there was, I think, from an education side, is we're trying to make sure that the athletes are taken care of with knowledgeable individuals. The students aren't being put in situations that they don't want to be in, but the debate's always going to be there.
Absolutely.
It's going to be there. People are going to argue. I look at it as Democrat or Republican. What'd you grow up as? Well, I grew up as a Republican. So I guarantee you're going to hate Democrats. Well, I came from an internship, and I've told Dr. Yellen, our program director, this many times. It's even tough for me to accept some of this, but I see why. You have to sell it to me, but it's like, why can't we just do this? And he makes some great points, and when I did it, and Jeremy's had to deal with this, and every high school does. You stick a student athletic trainer at tennis practice or something, and then you say, well, I'm understaffed, and the administration says, well, wait a minute, you have a student out there. Why do I need a full-time staff member out there? And so there's all those arguments are always going to exist. And I've kind of, maybe I've gotten kind of laissez-faire about it, but I just, the arguments could exist. I'm not going to get passionate and defend them and, to the end, but I love parts of the curriculum. There's parts that frustrate me, and Dr. Yellen's seen that as well, and you want to give your students some freedom, but you can't. I give this example, stretching, everybody can stretch a kid. But our standards state that students cannot perform a technique on an individual until they've been formally instructed in it.
Right.
And we had students at basketball practice. A basketball player went up to him, this was this summer, and said, hey, I need you to stretch my back. And the student, I'm very proud of her for doing this. She said, I can't do it. I can't. And the athlete got an attitude with her. It's like, what are you even here for if you can't even do something? And the student was defenseless, but it's that part gets frustrating because, they can do it. But it's more about, let's not put a first-year student on here doing a 1 megahertz ultrasound on somebody and burns them.
Right.
That's the counter side to it. And so, go back to your original statement. The debate's always going to exist. And I come from an internship, and I loved it. I loved how you got thrown into it. I loved how you could do anything you wanted to, but there's the movement towards what is the best for the athlete or the patient in this case. And Dr. Yellen's brought up a good point too. Who do you want doing surgery on you? Do you want the med student, or do you want the licensed physician that's experienced?
Well, it legitimizes the profession from a medical standpoint.
Right.
The point, and again, I'm kind of the same. I see both sides of it. I was extremely lucky at Tusculum under Jane Steinberg that she put so much emphasis on the book side of the curriculum side of our education. So I kind of got the best of both worlds. So I was spoiled. I also know of programs that the job of the student athletic trainer is to tote racks of water bottles, clean tables, and stay out of my way. And then in 4 years, you can go sit for your boards.
Hopefully you got enough.
But it's going to be the debate. And I didn't raise that to try to take us off course again. It was my bigger concern more globally is, okay, we're gonna get these scrubbed athletic trainers graduating from these curriculum programs. The rookie mistake that they may make. So maybe I do need to write that book. Maybe I can get you all to put that in your curriculum. And
well, I think two things off that. I think within your program first year, those same issues aren't going to come up as often later as those athletes know. Wait, okay, they can't do this stuff. I've got to go talk to so and so. They'll figure that part out. But I think some of it is I'm an internship guy. I think you've got to have that spot maybe within your program where you get people to come in and be the coach for the day, and they get to ask the asinine questions that don't make any sense. So you can learn how to respond to that besides because I said so, I'm the athletic trainer. That's huge. And that's what we were able to do in that internship program is go tell your baseball coach that so-and-so is not going to do anything today because they've got a hamstring strain. Well, can they do this? What about this? When are they going to be back? We got to play so-and-so.
Practical experience, absolutely.
You've got to gain that somewhere, some way, somehow. And is it better to gain that flying by the seat of your pants, or is it better to get a little bit of indoctrination into that in your program somehow?
All right, so just 1 second. Coach Pillow, would you mind jumping in here in just a second? You're going to sit right here next to me. And so this is Coach Pillow. He's good friends with John Harmon, and I'm going to actually ask him some of the things that he's seen as far as communication, because Dr. Knoblauch said communication is one of the biggest things that he's seen as a problem with rookie mistakes is not communicating. So just as a coach and dealing with athletic trainers in the high school, can you tell us kind of what you would expect, or how a rookie, because Nicole is a Master's of Athletic Trainer student, and she's trying to learn to not do the dumb stuff that we did. So how could she best communicate with you about an injured athlete and those kind of things?
Well, thank you for having me, for starters. I did not anticipate this, and any panel that has John Harmon on it is questionable at best.
just 1 out of 4.
But you're right. But as far as communication is concerned, and I've had the privilege of working with several good athletic trainers. What's expected as a coach is that you don't beat around the bush with them. You're the end all be all decision maker in the process, and you're going to get a lot of pushback on a lot of injuries or assessments you may have that the coach may not feel is appropriate, because it's going to keep them out of the game. And us coaches, we live and die by these wins and losses, and to us, sometimes we can't see past those wins and losses in games. But the athletic trainers are the educated professionals that know what's going on, that we may not understand the long-term effects of such injuries. I know that when the concussion protocol first came out, John was huge in that, in educating not only myself but the rest of our staff at a previous location. And there was some pushback on it, but stood his ground and made sure we all understood what was going to happen. And we didn't, at least in my case, we didn't question it. And the same goes here with the guys at Pasadena. If they say it, we don't question it. But it's because we have that communication from the beginning. And I think you have to respect where the coach is coming from, and understand his point of view.
Yeah, because I haven't talked to this group, but to the students, I was like, yeah, we know you're not happy to see us coming, but it's not because you don't like us, it's because what athlete that you need is going to be not able to play. And, and you're going to challenge, and I want the coach to challenge me. Why does he need to be out? Because this could happen. Not just, okay. And I've worked at a private school, contract work, and they would fall all over me if I said, Coach, kid's out. He's like, okay, you sure is that long enough? Do you want us to? I said, no, I want you to understand why I'm holding him out. Don't just take my word for it. It's a head injury. Okay, he's out. This kid has an ankle injury. If it gets worse, he's gonna be out next week. And this game is not near as important as next week or so. So I want our students or the student athletic trainers coming up to understand that you're not just mad at us. It's not like we're ruining your day because we're bringing you this information. It's because your job depends on this athlete, and you want to make sure that we're, holding them out for good reason. And what we don't like is when you counter, I don't know if you were in here with, I played when that happened to me, or that kind of stuff. That frustrates us. But I totally, if you approach you right, then it should be a good communication. It's just, Coach, this guy's out because of this reason, and then have a little conversation. Maybe they can do something. I don't like sitting a kid on the sideline and letting him do nothing. He needs to be on the bike or whatever. But it's good to hear from a coach's side that how you see it when we come.
But I think you just said it. Part of that communication is knowing how that coach likes to run things. I don't like kids just hanging out doing nothing. I'm not a babysitter. So we're going to get them to do certain things if we can. Now, that doesn't always allow it to happen on the gym floor or in the football field, depending on your space and how much equipment you have and all your access. But Coach, he's going to go in and he's going to bike. And when he comes back in the gym, you're going to see the sweat on him. So you're going to know he did something. He's not just hanging out looking at the girls. And I think that's a big part of it. And also, this just hit me. I think the young people got to understand that communicating with the coach doesn't mean we go out and have adult beverages once a week. That's called friendship. And friendship and professionalism are two different things. And when they cross, the coach isn't the one that's going to get burned. It's going to be the athletic trainer, because they're going to talk you into something because they're your buddy that you should have not done, and allow somebody to participate or not do something like that. And that's a hard thing to, you kind of got to get your heart broken, so to speak, once or twice to figure that out. That's a human nature thing. And, I've got good friends that are coaches, but you've got to find that line and not cross it on both sides.
Well, it's real easy to step into a school and default to, okay, I want to go hang out with you so that we're friends, so that when I have to bring you that bad news, you're going to take it better. And it does not work like that ever. Coaches are quickly able to flip the coaching switch, and we need to be able to flip that athletic training switch. I've been extremely lucky in that I do count Coach Pillow as one of my closest friends, but we were able to remove our friendship from when it's time to work. And he never questioned what I said medically, and I never questioned what he said from a coaching point of view. And so that's really the only successful time that's ever worked out in my career. So I would caution anybody about trying to use friendship as a means in which to ease the bad news that you sometimes have to bring. Communication is so vital, both in personal relationships and in professional relationships. And that's what so much is going to be alleviated. So many problems will be alleviated by communicating properly. Because here's the deal. The news is going to have to go to that coach or that parent or whatnot eventually. You might as well be the professional that brings it to them in a sure professional manner versus, oh yeah, I didn't call you because I didn't want you mad at me. I didn't want you mad at me, or I had other things going on and I didn't get to it, or whatever. It'll be way worse like that than it will be, Coach, we need to talk about so-and-so. This is the situation. This is what we're doing moving forward. I have a plan in place.
Right. I was hoping to tell you right after you bit into that fajita so you couldn't respond quickly while you were chewing.
So Coach Pillow, do you have any specific run-ins with an athletic trainer where you just really question their call or something like that, so that up and coming rookies understand how to best communicate with you. I've had situations where coaches were yelling at me because they were mad at what was happening on the field. And so I have to, like they said earlier, learn to separate. But, there's been times where I've messed up too, and I made the wrong call. Do you have any situations where you really didn't trust the athletic trainer, or you didn't, just the way that they brought it to you, the way they communicated with you was poorly, and you could give some advice from there?
Yeah, well, a couple of things I want to hit on. One is I've been very fortunate, like I said, to work with some really good athletic trainers. And I'm not just saying that because there's two of y'all sitting here. But I personally have not had that issue. I have, however, seen other coaches approach the trainers and question their decisions and be upset because of, the implications of that injury or their assessment. But we're not at the high school level. We're not under the same scrutiny you are at the collegiate level. I mean, you guys, the media is going to be all over anything, especially if you're dealing with a high-profile athlete. And to the point you made earlier, that the trainer is always going to be the one that's going to get burned in the end, because the deniability on the coach's end is, well, he let him go. I'm trusting what he said. Never mind the backdoor conversation that may have happened.
Look what's happening at University of Michigan right now.
Right.
Exactly. And there's examples throughout the college landscape, but with social media and so on and so forth, it's going to be out there, and you never know. So, but to answer your question, I personally have never had that happen. And this is my 17th year, but I have seen many instances with other sports that have questioned coaches or trainers, athletic trainers' decision-making for the simple fact that it's going to hurt them on a Friday night or a Tuesday night or on the volleyball court or whatever the case may be. So, for the up and coming athletic trainers, to the original question, as far as communication is concerned, it's extremely vital that you have a protocol, you have a plan of action, you stick to it. And, like John said, we were able to separate our work from personal, and those lines never crossed because of that mutual respect. And I think a lot of these coaches will respect you if you stick to what you're saying and you're knowledgeable about what's going on, and you explain to them how we're going to get him back for the game that does matter in a week or 5 days or whatever the case may be. And you're not out there to hurt him. You're not out there to you're not against the coach. You're on the same team as he is.
So as an athletic trainer or as a coach, how do y'all handle the view of, does the athletic trainer work for the coach, or does the coach work for the athletic trainer? Because there's always that
the athletic trainer works for the athlete.
Right.
Yeah. It's never been a question. I've never thought of the athletic trainer working for me. To be quite honest,
and
I'm a little
I
bit
think
different.
that question comes up a lot when the coach is the AD also.
Absolutely.
There's a ethical /
Right. Okay. Now that at the high school level, that's been settled, because in the concussion law, that's mandated now that if the head coach is also the AD, the athletic trainer cannot answer to them because it's a conflict of interest with the concussion law.
Right.
So you've got to be, most bigger districts have a AD, so that's taken out of their hands. But in those smaller districts, head football coach AD, you would then have to answer to a principal or an assistant superintendent or something. It cannot be to that guy,
which
Yeah.
is
And
awesome.
You
Right.
will run into,
Mhm.
you're going to run into some coaches at whatever level you're at that have been around for 30, 40 years, and they think their way is the way,
show.
Right.
and they run
Yeah.
the show, but they're not, at the end of the day, they're not the decision maker when it comes to the athlete's health.
And I think we're going to start seeing a trend at the high school level, the athletic trainer reporting to associate superintendents or whatnot. We're starting to kind of see that a little bit at the college level, and in this situation, I think it may trickle downhill. The specific instance that we saw this weekend at the University of Michigan, they're in some pretty hot water over letting their quarterback continue to play, and it's raising awareness. It's raising those questions at every level, I think it is going to trickle down. Currently, our athletic director is our head football coach, but I'm extremely lucky that day one he came in and sat me down and said, "You are the medical expert. That's not me. I will not question you on injuries." And he stuck to his guns. He didn't just say that; he meant it. So I'm extremely lucky in my situation. Not all athletic trainers are in that situation, though.
Right. Yeah, I don't mind taking an injury and talking to a coach about it and explaining it out to him. I don't want to have to justify every little thing. Yeah. They're out. I'm going to look at them tomorrow and we'll make a decision. Well, why can't you tell me right now? Because I can't always do that. Why didn't you call this play yesterday? Well, I'm not a coach. I don't pretend to be a coach. I've played. That doesn't make me a coach. You got hurt doesn't make you an athletic trainer. I've watched surgery doesn't make me a surgeon. We each have our specialty. And we've got to respect those. But I think this hit me a minute ago. Just we came in you're lucky if you go into this. We came in at a different time where my first job, I was the athletic trainer. I was it. I had nobody to fall back on. And so we got the one other thing that you make a rookie mistake on is, well, so-and-so did it this way last year. So-and-so's not here. So you got to politely and politically correctly say, I'm sorry, it's me now, and this is how I do things. Coming in now, they make mistakes of, well, in college, hey, we're dealing with minors. That's one thing you got to remember first and foremost. But we also have our own policies and procedures and rules in place for this school district or wherever we work. So it doesn't matter what you did in college. We can't do those things. John and I have talked about this. Certain treatments he may do or I may do. He goes, I don't feel comfortable doing that in this setting. That's fine. But, it's not, well, you're stupid. We should be doing this. You're not going to win your friends that way either. You got to come in and you can't, win over everybody because you're the new guy in town. Sometimes the one before you was so bad you did, but that's few and far between.
Yeah, I think the matter, as far from a coaching perspective, if you have a plan of action, no matter what your assessment or your decision is going to be, have a plan of action for that coach. Don't just walk in and say, "Hey, Johnny's out for 3 weeks." Well, what does that mean? What happened?
It means he's out.
How are we going to get him back? When can I get him back? What's the problem?
What's he going to do during practice when everybody else is working?
Stand there. What is he going to a doctor? I mean, come in, coach.
So
Johnny's out for 3 weeks because he has this.
I'm curious. You've been in 17 years. You said, what do you see from a coaching side in athletic trainers, older, more experienced versus the new ones that come in? What do you see from your side? I mean, I know what I see energetic. They don't watch, they're going to burn out. How do you, from a coaching side, what do you see in the say your school hires in first year versus they hire somebody that's been in 20 years or that has been there 20 years? What do you from a mistake side or whatever? What do you have on that?
I've been on both sides. From the older athletic trainers, I think experience has so much to say on what they know what they're doing. So they're going to approach things a little bit different. Not to say the treatment's going to be different, but the way they go about things. But I think the one thing that is kind of leery on our side as coaches is when a new trainer does come in, they're tentative and they're not wanting to kind of ruffle anybody's feathers because they don't want to make a call. When in reality, we would rather, hey, make the call.
So that's actually good to hear. You want us to be definitive and
yes.
take charge,
but in today's
in
day,
a professional way.
Right. Well, but at the same time, I think it's okay to say, I do not know.
For sure.
There's a lot of answers that are positive in saying, I do not know. What's wrong with him? Honestly, I don't know. He can't do this, so he can't play, but I don't really know what's going on. That at least gives you as a coach information.
Right. That's what I was saying, the plan of action. You at least know what you're
We got to figure this out.
Hey, I can't assess this today. We have to relook at it tomorrow for whatever reason.
Right.
But in today's day of liability, you definitely, at least on my perspective, you have to defer to the trainer on any kind of injury because I'm not the educated professional in that sense. I don't know.
But there's no shame in not having an answer because again, that is an answer. If I tell you, hey, John's out, what's wrong with him? Well, it's something in his lower leg, but I really don't know what's going on. Okay, fine. You're trying to figure that out. So you know I'm working on it. You're coaching. We'll talk.
Right. But your older coaches, your old school.
It's a hand. He can play without a hand.
Right.
That's what God gave you too, isn't it?
Right.
And you'll get a lot of that. A lot of these old school coaches.
Coming from the same coach that gripes that he never uses his left hand dribbling the ball, but let's go. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I'd say that's one thing that's hard to accept, kind of the I don't know. sometimes you just don't know, but you're there to figure it out.
Admit it, but say I don't know. We're going to figure it out.
Except on the exam, on your exam.
Right.
Yeah, that's not an
You have
answer.
to select an
When
answer.
it comes to textbook,
When in doubt, C. But yeah,
You tried to throw that out there as future building blocks. I see what you did there.
I don't know if they said that was a correct
He saw
answer.
through it.
Yeah, way to see through that.
All right, so I got another topic, and we can come back to any of these. But when I was in the previous school district, I was going to buy shirts and shorts with the budget because that way all the kids were just the same uniform, student athletic trainers looking the same. And then the AD comes back and says, "You can't buy those." I can't. Why not? This is the budget. This is what I saved for that. But by the time he did it, it was already past the deadline. So there was $500 worth of clothes so that my student athletic trainers could have a uniform and be like the rest of the teams.
Right.
But I couldn't. Now I lost that $500. He's like, "It wasn't yours to spend anyways." What do you mean? It's in the budget that I'm responsible for. But I missed that. And then actually 1 year here, I had some money that I was gonna spend, but then
They took it because you didn't spend it.
there was a miscommunication, and I asked, "Hey, can I wait until to the fall to order these and with this money?" And that person said yes, and then come back and it's not there. And I'm like, that was supposed to be our practice T-shirts. I needed to know how many I was going to get. And so the coach ended up taking that money, and then he ended up, he paid for the shirts because he took, $500 or whatever it was and gave me like $300 to buy the shirts because he was just being generous because he really didn't have to. But that was definitely a rookie mistake in budgeting, is not spending your money here in the high school. I think you have to have all your orders in like April 1st or something like
Right.
that. And you can't order until September 1st. So you're already 6 weeks into the year and you're needing to order stuff.
Well, and every school's different. Like we had to have our bids in, like literally in Humble SD, like spring break, but our money had to be sent into finance by like April 15th. But we could start getting our supplies then. But it's when is your fiscal year? And everybody's a little different. Some people say, yeah, you can save as much as you want later and order throughout the year. And others are like, nope, you got to spend it. Here's how we do it. And that's just coming in and asking those questions.
But as a rookie, you might not know to ask those
you won't know
questions,
to
and
ask
that's
those
the tough
questions.
part. And then that goes back to my book.
Right. Nice plug for a book that doesn't exist.
Exactly. I'm setting the
I'd
bar
read it.
pretty high on this book.
It'll be an ebook tomorrow, but yeah.
But how do you manage a budget? How do you properly plan for next year no textbook, no anything can tell of every circumstance that you're going to come up with, but general guidelines would have been extremely helpful. My first year at my first high school, there were so many mistakes like that I made with our budget. You got to kind of go through them and learn. And since I was the brand new head athletic trainer and my assistant was brand new, there was no, hey, this is how we did this last year.
Administratively, I think it's huge. I mean, budget. My first job, it was in college. I was suddenly the insurance coordinator. Like, what's a claim? By the way, here's a stack of claims that the previous trainer didn't file in time, so deal with them. Setting up physicals. How do you do all that? I mean,
Paperwork.
How do you teach that administratively? Get them a practical experience so they're ready for it, but not degrade from other things. Filling out soap notes or whatever. But administratively, it's hard to teach that as well. And you're often thrown in. Oh, by the way, you're supposed to coordinate physicals. It's like, well, who's our doctor? And I think you're exactly right. You've got to ask those questions. Or the other side of it is complacency. Well, and this is how we did it where I went to school, so can't we do that here? No, we have a different fiscal year. Or no, your budget needs to be in April 15th. You didn't know? They didn't tell you? Well, no. So you have to go in on your interview, especially what is my budget? What do I get to buy on this budget? Because a lot of people go in, and I did this my first interview too, is like, oh, I'm interviewing for a college job. Yeah, how much do you make? Do I have an assistant? And you're afraid to ask questions because it seems like you're going to offend them. Like, well, he's too inquisitive. We don't want to hire him. No, you need to know what situation. This is your chance to find out what you're getting into.
They're interviewing you, but you need to be interviewing them as well, because it might not be you may be offered the job. It might not be the job for you.
Right. But I think with that said, you need to do some research on that place you're going to interview at. It's not how much do I make is not the first question you ask. You need to know, who do I answer to? What are the hours that you deem appropriate? And some say you and your assistant set your hours. make sure everything's covered. Every school district is different. And so you've got to ask those questions. How much do we deal with insurance? You give them the form and you're done with it, or you've got to do all this. Do we have set injury reports we must do through the district, or can we do our own? All those questions have to come
Your
up.
interview's
All right, so
huge.
so Dr. Knoblauch, you are the one, you and Dr. Yellen are responsible for leading this next generation of athletic trainers. So some of these things that we're talking about, how are you guys addressing this?
Well, that's a two-pronged approach. One is we have our clinical proficiencies that we have to teach them. And for example, I'll give it the emergency care class as an example. We have to teach them about splinting, spine bowing, etc. And so we go into class, and one of my things I've harped on these guys about is the second prong, which is don't lay there as the victim all stiff and perfectly straight. I mean, be scared, yell if they move. And I'm trying to teach them the practical side. We can't go find a spine victim or potential C-spine injury
Right.
and let them see.
Hey, let's practice.
Let's create one. We need
I've
a victim.
I've tried to get them a scenario, and we actually did a filming of these scenarios where, the mom comes and yells, and we have to have crowd control. We have to have somebody call 911. And so we're told, we're teaching these specific proficiencies per domain, which we have to do, but I'm trying to incorporate real world experience. And Dr. Yellen teaches the administrative class, and one of the things I remember from when I was an undergrad is they say that what you're taught is different than what you get. And he used the example of the toothpaste commercial. He said, you see them putting toothpaste on a toothbrush in a commercial, they put it all along the toothbrush. It's big and flowy. What do most people really do? They put a little dab on there and they brush your teeth. And they said, in school, you're going to taught, this is this great scenario you're going to have. You're going to have this huge budget. How many shirts do you want to buy? And which new stim machine do you want to buy? When in reality, you get this little tiny budget. You better start asking for donations. You better start making some partnerships. So we want to get them especially me, but in Dr. Yellen's administrative class, he's going to do this as well, is we want to get them practical experience. We want to have them talking to the high school athletic trainer. What is your budget? Okay, design a budget based on that. My first budget at the junior college was $3,013. And that was tape, that was everything. So I'm buying hockey tape. I'm getting donations of vegetable bags from the grocery store. Went to the hospital and got Ace wraps. But in
cups from McDonald's.
In class, and cups, the green McDonald cups. And then I talked to the Gatorade guy. He sent me a cooler at the convention. But in the class, that in the books they just say, here's what you need to buy, but
This
it
is
doesn't
what a
always
fully
work
stocked
that way.
athletic training room is.
Right.
Fully stocked.
Oh, cool. Well, that's what
Coach
I should get.
Zonus tape, and because it tears easier. Well, I buy 27 cases of tape. There's my whole budget. I got to buy shirts, and I got
Band-Aids and gauze pads.
So to
all
answer
that.
your question, Jeremy, we have to teach the proficiencies, but I'm trying to incorporate the practical side too, to get them, how do we get them to know what it's like to have a coach over your shoulder when you're doing a concussion evaluation? We can't practically do it. But maybe we can have some students in their face, telling it, man, we have, and they don't see it. They see this side of it, but it's like, you don't understand how important this is, because the example I have used in the past is when you're a student athletic trainer at UH or wherever, you have all this protection of the assistant athletic trainer and the head athletic trainer that you can go to. You pass that test, everybody looks at you. What are you going to do? You're
Right.
the decision maker now. And you can't throw them into that. It'd be a deer in the headlights look. So what can we do to prepare them to experience those kind of things? The mad coach, the budget planning, the kid that said that the kid that's laying there unconscious, it's like, I don't know, I'm scared. I don't know what to do. Let me go get the head trainer. Oh, wait, that's me now.
I am the head trainer.
Yeah. By the way, there's 27 people looking at you, or there's a crowd looking at you, and there's scouts in the stands. And then here comes the mad dad. I remember a guy told me that the dad, he was doing a concussion evaluation. The dad comes out of the stands, grabs him by the shirt, and says, "My kid is not a baby, or my kid's not a princess." I think it was in the middle of this concussion eval. It's like, what do? You step back. You don't.
What we have to remember here, and of course at the collegiate level, it certainly is a business, but at the high school level, we're dealing with amateur athletes, and it's not a business. We're for gosh sakes, we're playing a game, and we're lucky that we're being paid to be a part of it. There's no wrong. There's no reason why we can't distance that self and have a little bit of perspective on it. And let's keep the main thing the main thing. Let's make sure that the athletes that walk on the field are the same athletes that are going to walk off of the field. And we have to constantly be able to reflect on decisions we've made as athletic trainers. I mean, we had a little incident on Friday that I've had some meetings about and gone, okay, well, how are we going to handle this situation better? That's not a negative thing. We handled it as good as we could, but we need to be able to look back and say, okay, what could we do better? There's nothing wrong with saying, I can do this better should this happen again. So being able to admit that I'm going to handle this differently moving forward, even though it was handled right this way the first time, there's nothing wrong with that. And that helps prevent some of those rookie mistakes,
right.
Constantly practicing in your head. What am I going to do if a coach goes down? Who am I going to call first? Who am I going to send for the AED?
Right. Well, and I think with that, some of that is obviously a lot of this is experience there, but I know one of the things I did every year is we had a mock-up of our physical form that we used for that year, and I always wrote notes on it. This was an issue. We need to move this box, or they never go to this page. And so we'd make those notes to try to improve that physical form every year. We did that when we do our physicals at the school. We did it on other issues that came up, and then we'd have a period of time towards the end of the school year where we would brainstorm these remaining items, because we'd usually already done our physicals and printed physicals by then. But look at those issues and say, okay, how are we going to handle this next year? Similar to your incident. Do we need to do anything different? No, not really. Maybe, put a sign on this gate that's a little easier to see. Maybe that's all we got to do. Or do we want to change our timeline on when we do this because it doesn't work as well for us? And I think that's important to keep those notes and have that file that you're paying attention to those things, as we did that. But talking about budgets, I can remember in college, we always had to carry around 3x5 note cards, a pen, gauze pads, and Band-Aids, along with tape and the other stuff. And we'd take the gauze pads and the note cards and the Band-Aids out of our pocket after practice because we were a little sweaty, and we'd throw them away. We'd get in trouble. You know how much those cost? We're like, big deal. I had to go call him and apologize when I got to my first job because I went, Band-Aids are how much? You didn't realize how much they were. You just kind of thought, like my child does now, that it just grows on trees, and they were always there, and all of a sudden you go, wow, Zonas cost what for a case of tape? And you're like, no, I'm not taping
too much.
Right. And now you become, no, I'm not taping your ankle just because you think you need it. This isn't college anymore. I don't have a budget that allows for that. And I don't have the manpower to allow for that. You're going to come in and do ankle rehab. Again, you go, ooh, hey, hang on. This is my money now, not somebody else's. We're not doing that, and that's an experience thing too.
And from a coach's perspective, I don't think it's, as to the budget question, I don't think it's out of the question to ask a coach. For example, when I was with John at a previous location, I wanted kids' ankles taped. Well, he wasn't a proponent of always taping ankles. Let's look at maybe ankle wraps or whatever the case may be. But I don't think it's out of the ordinary to say, Coach, you want your kids' ankles wrapped for every single game. You're buying the tape.
Right.
If the budget, the budget's not ever going to allow, because the coach always thinks he needs something else. But if that's a request specific to his program, hey, I would be happy to chip in whatever to a point to help the budget out. So you can't be afraid to ask that question too.
Right.
At the high school level.
Right. Well, I know I got a new head football coach, and he wanted to tape at the stadium as opposed to the school. So he wanted to leave early, tape at the stadium. He said, is that a problem? I said, yeah, I don't have portable tables to do and some stuff to do on that. He goes, tell me what you need. I want that done, so I'll make sure you have that. Or our offensive line wanted line coach wanted every offensive lineman tape. And I went, no, unless you're going to pay for all the supplies and give me the manpower to do that, why should I do that? I can't do it. And he went, yeah, okay, that's a stupid idea. Okay, we're good. But again,
wow, that was easy.
But we had a conversation about that as opposed to going, well, you're an a-hole, because it's not going to work. But Coach, I can't do that. I don't have portable tables. We can figure out manpower and spacing, but I need the table. Okay, I'll buy the tables. This is what I want to do, and I'm putting this onus on you, so I'll supply you with what you need. Or they look at it and go, yeah, I've got 14 line. No, okay, we're not doing that. That's 28 ankles.
So Jeremy, back to you originally asked what we're doing, and the budget's awesome. We could talk about. administrative stuff's fun. But one thing a mentor taught me was really neat, or a comment he made was, if you're going to fail safely. And what that means is, if you're going to fail, order the too expensive tape, or tape somebody bad. Don't fail at a head evaluation or concussion evaluation.
Right.
And don't screw that up, because that is a lifelong failure you're going to make a decision. So, and I've tried to tell these kids, when you have a kid down, face down with a potential C-spine, you got as long as you need out there. There's no rushing off the field. There's no timeline. Yeah, you understand there's a crowd, and if it was a TV game, yes, they're impatient, but that doesn't matter. You're in charge. And that's what's really cool about our job, is we get to kind of run the show when there's an injury. Take as long as you need. So I've tried to tell them, if a kid's on the field sitting down and his finger's dislocated, get him off the field. You're not going to screw him up walking him off the field, or her. But if it's a concussion or a C-spine, you take as long as you need, because you don't want to make that mistake. And I've used this scenario many times. It was at a middle school, or I'm sorry, not a school, at a private school. Kid got tackled from behind, fell forward, had neck pain. And I sat there for 10 minutes and I'm just like, this doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. And I was the only one there. I mean, there's no physician. And I said, you know what? I don't think he has a neck injury. The way he got hit, the tests I was doing while he's face down. And I've told these students, I said, by the book, he should have been spine boarded and gone to the hospital. But using your education, your knowledge, you start putting 2 and 2 together. I just don't think this kid has a neck injury. And I finally got to the point, okay, roll on your back. Does that hurt? No. He said, I just, feel weird. I could have walked out there. He said, my neck hurts, and I could have spine boarded him. Could have done that.
And you'd have been correct.
And you would not have done any harm to him. But I said, use your education. And he didn't play anymore. He walked off the field. He played the next week, got clearance, nothing was wrong. But just the way he got hit, the way he fell, he's like, something's wrong with my neck, which in our book is classic C-spine injury or neck injury. Yeah, I took 10 minutes. I was nervous. I was scared. I'm like, am I making the right decision here? But it just didn't make sense. And so I just tell them, if you're going to fail at the things that don't cause anybody harm. You know. But if you are not sure, keep going until you're sure, or do what's best, and that's hospital or refer them to a doctor or whatever.
The conservative approach.
So just fail safe.
Well, I think there's 2 parts to that, and you kind of said both of them. First off, use your license. You have one. You've got a license and a certification. Use that knowledge. That's what it's there for. So go through your steps, ferret this stuff out, ask the questions, do the evaluation, and check things. Get as much information collected as you can. Trust your gut. If it's not right, send them. And I'll finish my story I was telling you before we came on the air a minute ago. But what the other thing is if you're going to fail safely is perfect. No, you're not going to get in trouble for calling the ambulance, no matter how much it costs mom and dad. You're going to get in trouble if you didn't. And so, not saying every injury goes to the hospital via ambulance or to the emergency room. Obviously, use your license. Right. But when you don't know, trust your gut. When your gut's rumbling, and it's okay, because you to use a phrase that some people, you made a better bad choice in that regard. You sent them to the hospital when they didn't necessarily need to go, but you protected that kid. And that's important. I'm not going to send every kid to the emergency room. Not every kid's going by ambulance. I'm going to use my license, but when I'm unsure, what's the safest option? Students
have to decide when they graduate and become certified and licensed, what kind of athletic trainer are you going to be? And there's not a right or a wrong answer when deciding that. I've made a decision for myself. I default to function when it comes to an ankle or a knee or an elbow or wrist or shoulder or whatever. If you're functional, you got a shot to play. You got a shot to get back out there on the field, unless there's a reason why you shouldn't. And I know that reason. But so I can be a very aggressive athletic trainer with regards to orthopedic type injuries. But I'm extremely conservative when it comes to brains, hearts, and backs. When it comes to that, shutting them down till we have reason to get them back out there.
You're done until you work your way back up, versus the other one is you work your way down. No, you can't play. That's a good way to put it.
And that's only my way of looking at it. And that's not necessarily the right way. In fact, a lot of people would say that's the wrong way, but that's the way I look at it. And
I'm like you. I think that's really a good way to do it. I can remember one of the things, I had to grow up really fast. My second job was at Westfield High School under Coach Emery Ballard. So if you don't know who he is, he invented the wishbone offense. And so he always had kids with injuries that he had never heard of. I've never heard of a hip flexor injury. and AC sprains needed to stretch. So he would hang them, he would hang them from the squat rack. But that was a learning experience. But I know one time, and I can't believe I did it when it happened, but he was griping at me about some lineman that he wanted to play. And I finally had enough. And I said, Coach, he can't get in a stance. He can't fire out. He can't sprint forward. He can't stop, and he can't move laterally. But bleep, if he's the one you really need on the field right now, take him. You can have him. And he stopped and he went, oh, keep him over there. I'd finally made my point with him. And that's where I learned. I got to tell him what he can't do as opposed to he just can't.
Because if he's going to hurt the team, do
Right.
you really want him out there? And I've used that for psychologically even. Yeah, he can go, but he's your running back and he can't cut. Do you really want him out there? Or he's your lineman and he can't put any pressure on a straight knee.
His left hand's numb. He can't hold the ball.
Do you want him blocking? And that's the communication. I can go up to you and say, Coach, he's out. But I'm hoping you say, well, what's wrong? Well, Coach, he can't straighten his leg. You know, he can't put pressure on his ankle. You know, and so
But
he could go, but he's not. He's going to be a detriment to your team. And hopefully that's the key. It's like, hey, hold him out then. You know, and I think that's a good way of putting it is tell the coach, you know, he's doable, but you really don't want him out there because if I was the defense and I saw him limping, I guarantee you I'm sending my linebacker right at that guy.
Right.
Yeah, and have a knowledge of the sport you're
Yes.
with.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Have a
That's a
knowledge
great
of
point.
knowing, hey, this kid, to me, it may not mean anything as meniscus. Well, what does that mean to me? I'm not very smart.
Right.
Explain to me what he can't do on that knee.
You know, what does that mean? Right.
What does that mean to a basketball player? Well, we make him make that plant. Now it's a problem. He can't make cuts. He can't
rebound.
He can't turn. He can't whatever.
Yeah.
Well, you know, in talking
So
to
have
our
knowledge
kids,
of the actions required in the sport.
and talking to our student trainers about, you know, we don't do a lot of assessments with our student trainers, but, you know, we start to try to lay the foundation in case they're interested in going on to a program. It's not foreign to them when they get there. What's the difference between hips and hops and soap notes and things like that? You know, there are the four main questions that I learned in taking an accurate history, but there are an infinity number of other questions you could ask that would be appropriate. You know, are you left-handed or are you right-handed? Because that could factor into things.
Yeah, which leg do you kick with?
Exactly. What sport do you play? What position in that sport do you play? That all factor into, you know, can this person go back out there? You know, they're a pitcher, but it's their left shoulder. Okay, well, maybe we can try a little bit more functional stuff to get you out there. Maybe you can push through a little bit more of that pain. You know, but taking a good history and knowing more about your sport is so essential. We try to get our student trainers, you know, they come in and oftentimes don't know anything about football, but having a working knowledge of what's the difference between a running back and a linebacker is essential because it legitimizes you as an athletic trainer. You know, so many times, you know, there are all kinds of reasons people get into our profession, but having a working knowledge of that sport at least lets the coach know that you know you are taking time,
you know what you're talking
about.
about.
Exactly. You know what you're talking about. There is a difference between, okay, the kicker hurt his hand. Okay, I'm not going to hold him out for that.
Right.
You know, but your quarterback's throwing shoulder is you know, subluxed. He can't throw a ball. That's now an issue.
Yeah, your 100-meter sprinter's got a hamstring strain that's mild, but so does your 2-mile guy. The 2-mile kick can probably go run. You know, those things. But like baseball, you know, it's a sport I dearly love. People don't understand. I'm a pitcher and my middle finger has a blister on it. I got to go on the DL.
Yeah,
I can't
you're
throw
done.
because if I throw, I may blow out my elbow, screw up my shoulder.
Sport specific stuff.
But what does the
Position
media say? Pitcher held out because he has a blister.
Right.
You know, it's
Yeah.
like
Right.
or high ankle sprain.
And those guys are soft.
Yeah.
You know, they don't understand the, you know, kinetic chain and blah, 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 blah. But again, that's our job when we go explain that to the coach. Hey, our kicker can't kick because he's got a hip flexor versus our kicker. I'm not going to let him kick because he's got a hand. You know, you got to know the difference when they can and can't.
All right, so it's about time to end it. So Nicole, hopefully you may have one final question. You may not.
She's changing majors.
How do I
My
change
one
majors?
thing is I regret not taking advantage of opportunities. Like for you, this is awesome. I mean, you've got a wealth of knowledge, and I think if I could go back, I would pay a lot more attention to all the opportunities that I had to evaluate somebody or to ask questions. Like he said, fail safely, fail while you're under somebody else's wing. So for those rookie or soon to be rookie athletic trainers, ask as many questions as you can. Pay attention to every opportunity. So if you go work with Bubba, ask him a bunch of questions, because Bubba loves to talk and tell you stories. So he's going to answer every question. Dr. Lowe, if you work with Dr. Lowe, he loves to answer questions. He's good at that. And so I failed to take advantage of those opportunities that I had. So I hopefully you being part of this.
She's probably asked more questions in my classes than anybody, which
Yeah.
is good, because it keeps
Yeah.
me, because they don't ask you, and I always use this, they don't ask you how to spell ACL. They ask you legitimate. It's like, oh, I better know my stuff too.
Yeah.
Or I better not say something that I don't know much about, because if they ask a question, you could say, well, I'm not sure, or you don't want to BS a BSer, but you know, they need to, they do ask questions, which is good. I wish all of them ask more questions, because it as an instructor, it reflects back, okay, they're interested in this, and it's not questions that it's just they didn't understand what you're talking about. So
Right. I think the other thing is get a group of mentors that all aren't from the same place. Get a bunch from other areas. I was fortunate enough to get several, and one of them being Bobby Gunn and Otho Davis, and so I could call Otho up and ask a question. And I got to ride around with him for several days, and there were times, and I'm not patting myself on the back, but you can teach them as much as they teach you sometimes, because you'll go, well, blah, 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 and they'll go, I've never thought about that from that angle. Mm-hmm. And they'll go, oh, that's a thought, and so there's great dialogue. And when you can pick up the phone, or nowadays email them and say, hey, blah, 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 sometimes they'll be the guy walking you off the edge of the cliff, and sometimes they're going, hey, you're doing right. Just, stick to your guns. This is all going to blow over, and you're going to win the battle. You need those people, and get them from other areas than from just, no offense to these, just from U of H. That's bad. Get them from a guy that graduated from over here. There's a million ways to skin that cat, and you got to be open your eyes to all those ways, because my student trainer scheduling program worked for me. It doesn't work for him. That doesn't mean he should, try to put the square peg into the round hole.
Well, and being involved at the national level is a wonderful thing. Being involved at the regional level is a wonderful thing. Being involved at the state level is a wonderful thing. But you don't have that constant contact with those people as you do, at the area kind of level. That's why we're extremely fortunate in this area. Not trying to pat our own selves on the back, but the Greater Houston Athletic Training Society is a wonderful opportunity for athletic trainers to get to know those that are in their district, in their area, in their the immediate Houston area, because it's so vital to be able to pick up a phone call and say, hey, Jeremy, listen, I ran into a situation I'm really struggling with. Give me some perspective. Let me know what you think about how I handled this. How would you do it differently? What did I do good? Because it's vital to legitimize you. Your coaches can tell you. My first 4 years in the first job I had, I never once heard thank you or good job from our athletic director and head football coach. Now I hear it every single day, multiple times a day from that person, and it's essential, and it helps so much with me doing my job. But sometimes you need to get that from peers in your district or in your area.
Did I handle this right? Yes or no? And if you did, tell me I did. If I didn't, kick me in the butt and tell me I didn't.
Yeah, get involved.
So we can all agree with the fact that it's the non-textbook experiences.
It's the OJT.
I think so.
That get you.
You've got to have that base knowledge, but that base knowledge only takes you to a certain point. And then from there,
it's not gonna change.
From there, that fork in the road, you've got to pick it. Did you pick the right side of it, the right side of that argument to go on? And the only way to do that is you've got to get cussed at, and you've got to get yelled at, and you've got to go home and kick the dog, so to speak, and go, all right, what do I do next time?
And you gotta be okay with the fact that you're gonna be wrong.
Right.
It's gonna and it's okay to be wrong. That's how we get better.
Accept it.
Be wrong conservatively.
And you have 50 people you deal with from a coaching and administrator every day. You're not going to make all 50 happy with your decisions every day. And then the next day you've got a new 50 to deal with.
It used to bother me a lot more than it does now. That comes from just experience.
Right. You can't make everybody happy all the time. You're going to make somebody mad because you're doing your job. You're going to make that coach mad, or that kid mad, or that parent mad because their freshman is going to miss out on their scholarship opportunity by not playing in a scrimmage. No, they're not.
Yeah, because that's a good example. One scenario, kid gets hurt. You got your boss, the head athletic trainer, that is happy that you did it right, Now you've got the kid that's very depressed because he's out. The coach is upset at you because their kid can't play. The parents are scared because they don't know what's going on. I mean, one scenario, you've got 4 different personalities that are not going to be the same. How you have to, let me deal with the coach from this aspect. Parents are scared. Let me calm them. It's not a big deal. Kid's depressed. He's got rehab. Hey, you work really hard to get back. Boss is glad because you took care of them all. So that's exactly right. You've got, even just doing your job, you're going to have a gamut of different personalities to deal with.
One of the things I told parents, and I think it holds true in almost all of what we do, is I would tell them a lot of times they're scared and they're confused. Say, hey, I see this every day. You don't. And that's a good thing. You know, we got this. We have a plan for this. Here's what we're going to do. Relax. We're going to take care of this. You just tell them, I see this every day. This is my job. You don't want to see this every day, because if you do, you got some bigger issues to deal with, you know. And so if you just tell them, this is what we do, this is our thing, not arrogantly, but in a reassuring manner, you know, we're going to get you to the right people. We're going to get this taken care of. And then it's, you know, hey, now they got to follow doctor's orders and they got to work in here. And if they do all that, we're going to be fine, you know, but not just, oh, well, he did this and you need to go here. Because now you got to remember, they got other people chirping in their ear too. And it's, you know, very much let's relax. We got this.
And that goes back to communication.
Exactly.
There you go.
All right. So Nicole, any final questions or comments?
Just thank you for sharing all of your
screw ups.
Right.
Yeah. Thanks for screwing up so I can learn from it.
And the best part is you're going to make some of the exact same mistakes that we've talked about here today.
And you're going to go, God, they told me not to do that.
But if you
notes.
take the most, well, I got some notes, but hey, it'll be recorded, posted. It's going to be on YouTube.
Sure.
That part right there that you see, and then it'll be posted on the sports medicine broadcast. So you can always listen or share with your students as you move on to take Dr. Knoblauch's space one day.
There you go.
All right, so guys, any final one sentence parting? Don't make this mistake.
I wouldn't say anything specific on don't make this one particular mistake. Just know that you're going to make mistakes, learn from them, and always keep the main thing, always keep the athlete the priority. And if you do that, you're going to be okay.
I think the biggest takeaway is it's okay to say you don't know.
I say fail safe and learn from your mistakes.
And then I'll steal a line from both John and Bubba. John was saying be involved locally. Bubba was saying get a group of mentors. So if you have a group of mentors locally,
win-win.
You do what?
It's a win-win.
Yeah. Then you can easily call people or say, hey, what do you think? Because, when we go to the GHATS meetings every other month, I can throw something out to John or to Daniel or to, Bob, one of those guys and say, this went on, or, maybe I'll just, hey, what's been happening? Shoot the breeze. Either way, I'm building that friendship and learning. And
right.
So
I miss those meetings at times.
Always welcome.
It made you feel better about your day when somebody else had a worse one when you were going to one of those meetings.
Can I just say, have a mentor and be a mentor? Because also there are some undergrads that do come to me and ask me questions, and I feel like I almost have somewhat of a mentor position. And that's helped me realize also, what am I doing and what am I not doing?
And if they're coming to ask you questions, they must respect you. That's good to hear. I mean, anybody that comes and asks you your opinion, they must really either respect you or know that you're knowledgeable in that area. So that's good.
Very good. Very good. Definitely like that. And then actually, I know we were talking about GHATS. We're working on setting up a college level. So as that develops, I know Dr. Yellen's going to be involved with kind of overseeing that. And so, hopefully you guys will be able to get involved there and then form some of those other relationships. And I know they're doing a great job there at the University of Houston of putting you in front of a lot of different people, a lot of different situations. So again, take advantage. I did an internship with the Texans and I didn't learn much because I was just living it up. I wasn't really learning. And so
you were in the moment.
Yeah. Just take advantage of those opportunities, lots of knowledge. So, all right, well, to close it out, I want to thank the people that make the podcast possible. It is very cool that we can offer CEUs for doing a live event from GHATS. They sponsor the CEU event. We talked about them a good bit today. Memorial Herman, you got Bubba Wilson there in the pretty blue shirt if you're watching live. He supplied us with the backdrop and in this source of knowledge and material for the podcast. And then obviously Dr. Mark Knoblauch and then Nicole Cascia, a third-time podcast personnel. And it kind of, just having you here, Nicole, makes it realistic because we're not just talking, oh, somebody somewhere, but hey, this is you. This is in 2 year, a year and a half. This is things that we hope you can take away. So
You're going to get to go screw up just like we did.
yeah, so it
Can't
really,
wait.
I'm very glad that you came, and Dr. Knoblauch, thanks for
Thanks for having me.
opening that opportunity for your students. So if you want to check out our website, sportsmedicinebroadcast.com. Again, sportsmedicinebroadcast.com. Almost every single Wednesday we have one. The 15th, we have the PSAT. I was going to have Tim Heller, the meteorologist, come, but we have the PSAT, so they kind of messed up my schedule. But he's going to come in the spring when weather gets crazy again.
Tornado season.
Yeah, exactly. Again, I talked about the email list. That's where I'm going to send out some of Bubba's exclusive content for his 11-step program and some other things that I come up with. So you can join the conversation on Twitter at PHS SportsMed or using hashtag BSMB during the live shows. Sports Medicine Broadcast on Google Plus or Facebook.com/PHS Athletic Training. So for Jeremy, that's you.
So you're not paying attention.
So typically we'll go around and
Oh,
say,
okay. Nicole Cascia.
So we'll do it again. So for Jeremy,
Nicole.
Mark.
Bubba.
And John.
and then all my sports medicine students that left like an hour and a half ago, that's a wrap.
There you go.
Super impressed. I thought we were going to have somebody with like an iPhone recording this, and I'm
That's behind
kidding.
us. None of this
I'm
stuff really
kidding.
works.
I'm kidding.
It's all show.
Yeah. It's all dummy computers and stuff. Whoops.
Just so you know.
FYI.